It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
And welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Breakfast as we talk property news 7 days a week after the weekend, which of course was way too short. And you can hear us on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts and Amazon. Yes, back into the Monday. We don't like Mondays, as the Boomtown Rats illustrated with that 1980s song. July the 22nd today. And we're going to be talking about cyber security because a few days ago we were talking about real estate scammers and how you have got to be very, very cautious. And unfortunately, as pointed out, scammers are increasing their focus on you due to the high return on investment. Let's face it, they're not targeting real estate just for fun. It's all about the dollars and the perceived lack of effective law enforcement. So let's welcome in and catch up with Dan Halpin. He is the CEO from Cybertrace. And Dan, welcome to the Real Estate Breakfast this morning. Great to have you on.
Thank you and good morning.
Obviously, a big problem for a lot of people when it comes to scammers within the real estate industry. But let's just kick off with you personally. Cybertrace, you were saying that you've been going for about 10 years. You were working a little bit more traditionally prior to that. So talk to your background and sort of some of the observations, I guess, that you've noticed in the last 10 to 15 years.
As you mentioned, I was originally a traditional level employee in government, so New South Wales Police, Queensland Police, and then into federal government. So that included counter-terrorism intelligence training. I also worked for ASIO, the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet. But around about 2015, I did see a gap in the market in terms of cyber and open source intelligence. So I was one of the first people within Australia to head in that direction and create a distinct agency that really does focus on those products and services. Ever since then, I'm sure everyone would agree that cyber and cybercrime has gone out of control. So I feel that we're definitely in the right industry, and we're able to now assist a wide range of clients, including the real estate industry.
Yeah, it's definitely a growing industry. As you say, in the last few years, particularly, I think over the last 5 years, it's just absolutely blown out of control. You only have to go back to the general elections in the US and what was happening there with cyber. So it's very well documented. People on a daily basis are getting these phishing emails. Now, I just want to come back to a point before we discuss all of that. A few days ago, we were talking about how scammers fear proactive foreign agencies like German police and the FBI. They're known for global raids and securing convictions. Is Australia seen as a bit of a soft country for scammers?
Absolutely it is. So we're in almost daily contact with informants within the scam industry, mostly Eastern European call centres and the like. And they tell us that Australians are one of the major countries that are targeted for this type of crime. So other countries include Canada. But when it comes to German and American victims, they're often told by their hierarchy that we're not to touch these guys because their police forces will come after us. But they know that the Australian authorities won't go after them. So that's why Australia is seen as an easy target. And they're also telling us that they're increasing the number of staff that are dedicated to targeting Australians whilst reducing the number of German targeted victims and also US.
Well, that's not good news. That's not something we want to hear because it means that there is a lack of proactivity, I guess, as far as the cyber crime is concerned. Is it just down to the dollars and cents and not enough resourcing? What's your feeling about that for Australia?
There is a combination. So in terms of policing, there is a real lack of interest within state police. And that needs to be spelt out more so, because when we're talking the federal government, the AFP and the National Anti-Scam Centre, they're quite proactive. They have large budgets and they actually want to do something. But what they don't have is the support and coordination from the state police. So we hear all the time from our victims where they go into their local police station to report their case and they get turned away at the counter. Sometimes officers will say, we're not even going to bother taking a report from you because these guys are overseas. It's outside our jurisdiction. The police aren't even doing basic level investigation to confirm that the offenders are overseas. They're just having this blanket response, not going to deal with it. And that, in terms of community expectations, that's completely out of line with community expectations, and something seriously needs to happen within state police to more effectively deal with this so that they can then refer their cases to AFP and NASC and they can take further action with their international partners. But basically speaking, the system in Australia is broken.
Wow. Well, I'm just sitting here listening and thinking, if there's somebody with political aspirations, that could be the platform to run on, is to increase and deal with the cybercrime across Australia. That would have widespread consumer support, one would think, at the ballot box.
Absolutely. And I've been driving this conversation for quite some time. And media is usually a little bit hesitant to take on the police, especially because their media works very closely with the police media branch as well. They're a little bit cautious there, but the reality doesn't change, is that like I mentioned, the system is broken and something needs to be done. And I see that the only way that that's going to realistically happen is through politics, pushing that agenda through.
We have all received these phishing emails, which are a pain in the backside, and they are costing millions and millions of dollars to Australians every year. A lot of it goes unreported, and that's part of the problem, isn't it, Dan? Victims just decide to, I guess, turn to cybersecurity agencies if, in fact, they do want to take that sort of proactive approach.
That's absolutely correct. And what we do when we receive a victim contact, we'll always say to them, have you reported this case to the authorities? And we're seeing at least 50-60% of the time, people say, no, we just called you guys straight up because we have been told by a lot of our contacts that government won't do anything. It's just a waste of our time. And we actually want to get some proactive action. And to do that, we need to hire a private company to pursue this for us.
Now, swinging back to real estate, most of your inquiries with people getting in touch with regard to what has happened to them is on a consumer-driven level. You would no doubt like to see more real estate companies becoming more involved with the type of service that you are offering.
Correct. That's a direction that we're heading in. Traditionally, we haven't dealt with real estate a great deal. What we're trying to do as a company is to provide more opportunity for real estate to be proactive in avoiding these types of scams or compromise of their systems by working with companies such as Cybertrace to be able to reduce their risk level.
Have you got a number in terms, and I'll get you to explain the phishing email just as an example of how that works, because I don't think we all fully appreciate just what is happening in the background of the way they are targeting. So have you got a number in terms of a percentage on average in Australia, how many times in a week, in a day that people are being targeted?
I don't have those official numbers with me. Obviously, we have our own numbers that we receive through victim contact, but unfortunately, I don't have that information available today.
Okay, well, perhaps you could just explain the actual phishing email in itself in terms of how that all sort of works and operates.
Generally, what they are is they'll either come through two methods where they will use an associated domain that is very close to the original domain. So instead of Jones's Realty, for example, .com, it might be jonesesrealty.org, and that's attached to a fake website that looks like the original, but there are differences in the sense that it's the scammers that are operating the fake email. And industry will think that they're dealing with the right business partner or the right consumer, where they're dealing with everything that's fake, and they could have a range of things such as fake invoices, fake links to make payments, or a range of other things that they can employ to scam individuals. Another way that they can do it is they can also manipulate the email itself so that it does go through to the individual with the correct domain or email address, but then when they reply, it goes to a different location, to a different email address. And that sort of thing can be mostly detected through email header analysis, and that is one of the services that my company Cybertrace does do. Email compromise, or man-in-the-middle attacks as they're known, are definitely growing, in the sense that a lot of scammers are seeing that these types of attacks do have a high level of reward. And also the fact that the police won't go after them in most circumstances, that's very appealing for scammers. And what I suspect we're going to see over the next 5-10 years is a lot more of this happening. And we know that it does target real estate companies or anyone else within that field, such as stakeholders like conveyancers and the rest. Anyone that can be exposed and used to get money from a victim or a company.
Yeah, and I just wonder, I'm one of these people where if something just remotely doesn't look right, I just delete it. And in fact, 9 times out of 10, I'll report it as a scam, and because I'm just not prepared to take the risk. The downside to that, and I mentioned this a while ago, is the amount of business that is being lost as a result, because some will be no doubt legitimate, but it'll just be the way that it looks and doesn't quite smell right. And yes, there will be a small percentage that are, but most of them, I think, they will fall into that scam basket.
That's right. And this is where the real estate industry really needs to be careful, because if there are a lot more victims coming forward over the next 12 months, the faith in the industry to detect these scams and to counter these scams will mean that victims are less likely to part with their money, which adds another level of complexity for making an efficient and smooth transaction. So I think there is a lot of pressure on the industry at the moment to make sure that they don't fall victim to these types of scams, because let's face it, it's often the consumer or their clients that are being severely impacted, especially when it comes to first home buyers. These guys, it's their first time, they have limited experience, and if they get burnt the first time, they're less likely to be wishing to invest in real estate later in life. And obviously that's not a good position for the real estate industry to be in. So one takeaway from today is I think that real estate companies really need to pick up their game and make sure that they're protecting their clients.
Dan, it certainly sounds like you know a thing or two when it does come to this whole cyber internet scamming. And thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with us this morning on our Monday and explaining what you do, how you do it, and what is involved. So thanks for coming on to the Real Estate Breakfast.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
From powerful and up-to-date news to professional real estate experts with the latest property trends on the Real Estate Podcast.
Yeah, the apartments really vary. You know, you might have a one-bedroom studio for $600,000 or a penthouse sold for over $10 million in Newcastle last year. But majority of it is very affordable.
But at the same token, we're also seeing those interstate investors. So it's not just Sydney-siders coming in to relocate. They're also looking at our real estate for an investment to become a landlord.
You know, around Australia, and then they're renting their properties out for that period with the option with a possible extension to tenants within the region.
Or or potentially lenders that don't need as much of a deposit as others is also a really good option. And the other would be probably job security. You know, we've seen a lot after COVID that people are changing roles.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.